a podcast every Wednesday morning here at Metronome Studio, the beautiful Metronome Studio. This is a
Mm-hmm.
great home for any sort of a band that wants a place to rehearse. That's not their garage and kind of get out here, not have to worry about noise restrictions or keeping it down. You can come out here and jam out and meet some other great musicians.
Yeah, this is a great space.
They have a few different ones. They started in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
They invested in this place in Salem, and I always love seeing companies invest in Salem, especially when you're building a place like this that's really built for community, bringing people together. And I've had a few people reach out and ask, like,
Mm.
"Hey, do you want to what do you think about hosting your podcast here?" And something I loved about this was just this room,
Yeah.
and like just the energy it has. And something I always ask people is like, looking around, which animal would you say really represents you, Teresa?
Well, all these animals, I feel like maybe I can turn into
Yeah,
some
right.
point in my.
It's kind of different with the situation, right? What does
Yeah,
the situation require?
exactly. But connecting, I have a connection with my last name León, which means lion, and so there's a image over there of a lion, and there's an image of a lion over there with your a grand chair here, the throne.
The throne. Yeah, we didn't even notice this until today, but the throne is the exact same throne that's in that picture with the lion. So kind of a meta sort of a situation. Is that the right use of the word meta?
That's the right word.
Somewhere,
Meta.
somewhere it might be, it might not be.
I'll have to find an image of a lioness to add to the collection.
Yeah, you're right.
Right?
Is there one? There's not one.
I don't think
Lots of
so.
options.
Mhm.
You got the foxes are kind of killing
Mhm.
it, but not a lioness. Okay, good
Mhm.
noted.
There's a kitty behind you who's, I mean, she looks fabulous, and a fox lady in front of us.
Yeah, that cat looks really rich and ready to party.
Yeah, yeah,
I think I could party with her. I think I'd have fun.
I love it. Well, I wrote a book recently called "Parties: How Parties Will Save the World,"
Oh, really?
and we were talking about it a little bit earlier about how
Uh-huh.
isolated everybody is,
Yes.
and how a lot of people won't get out unless they're personally invited.
Right.
They just don't know if they're like should be at this event.
Right.
And I think sometimes we're making events happen. We'll do the Facebook event, we'll post some flyers, and
Mm-hmm.
hope people will realize that we want them there.
That's right.
But like we go so much further with those personal invitations.
Yeah, no, and ever since COVID, have people been pretty isolated, and you kind of got used to being in your own space. But yeah, it's time to hang out with folks again. I was sharing earlier too that we had we were planning my campaign kickoff on my birthday, January 31st. We obviously want as many people to be there, and we sent out email invites to a list of folks. But you're right. When I sent out individual texts and made some calls, we had an amazing turnout. I think we had close to 100 people show up.
That's awesome.
I felt so loved that day. And, it was just so much fun to reconnect with people that I hadn't seen in person in forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. And I think one of my favorite things about the event was that people brought their kids. So it was a really family friendly event.
Yeah.
And it's so important for young people to see, what's going on in community, and
Yeah.
how they can also engage. I think we have this kind of concept that if you're a kid, you don't know what's going on, or, you're not as focused, but actually our kids are paying attention and,
Absolutely.
wanting to connect. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think the other piece of that is just teaching them how to connect, right? Like
Yes.
being parts of events.
Yeah. The
Making
social norms.
making it normal to just be out, how to say hello to somebody, how to
Exactly.
like go to a restaurant and ask for a
Mhm.
table and order
Mhm.
food on their own. Like all of these things.
Yeah.
I think if you think of how anxious a generation is presented sometimes, I think a lot of
Mhm.
that is like parents are doing too much for them. And
Yeah.
the phone can be a really convenient babysitter. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just give your kid a phone, let them scroll, and like you'll be able to kind of do what you want forever. But it's probably not the best
Still not
for
the
that
best.
kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My ex-partner has a son who I adore as my own. I've known him since he was 3. and he's always asking for a phone, and we tell him, nope, you're not old enough to have a phone yet. He's 9 now. And he says, but my friends have phones. Yeah, but that's your friends. You know,
Yeah.
we're going to wait until we think you're mature enough to handle phones. And then, you know, we get into the conversation because he always says, why? But why are we different from other families? And sometimes I have to pull out my, well, data,
Yeah.
psychologists say, and we want to make sure that you're healthy. You're in a great emotional space to be able to handle a phone.
Yeah.
So sometimes we have to have those little conversations with him.
Something I found is, so we were the same way. Me when I was married, I'm divorced now, but it's like we're gonna wait for a while for the kids to get phones. But then you get divorced, and you're like, all right, I don't have to talk to this person to get to my kids all the time. And so I think that's where you kind of fast track the phone purchasing process. So we had one that our kids shared for a while, and now they both have their own. But it is one of those things. Like the longer you can kick that can down the road, the better. There just really aren't a lot of benefits. I think a lot of parents like, what if I need to get hold of my kid? And it's like, just 5 people around your kid that have a phone. Like you could call one of them if you really need to get a hold of them usually. And we lived for how many years without cell phones, and everybody it's kind of
Absolutely.
worked out okay,
Absolutely.
Being somebody that makes a living off of Instagram, I'm okay with some people having phones, but I'm also very much aware of some of the potential risks if we're not using it in a healthy manner. So
Correct.
yeah.
Correct. For the young people, but again, walking and talking how to use a phone appropriately. Limiting certain spaces for kids. Absolutely. I mean, every parent gets to decide when it's appropriate for their children. I'm not going to tell anybody what that age is. That's up to parents, of course.
Love it. And so,
Quick interjection.
yeah.
Do you remember when you were kids? I remember when I was a kid, I remember the phones had a pay by the minute card.
Yes.
So that was something we had to do in order to have the minutes, was to mow lawns or something.
Yes.
To get enough minutes to have the phone.
Yeah.
Now it's not really like that because you just get a phone anytime.
Or like
Right.
the text messaging, you got like 100 texts for the month.
Yep.
Like I'd burn through that in like before the end of the day. You know what I mean? I can't even. Yeah,
And it was so expensive.
It was really expensive.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I mean, the phones were not as expensive, but using it was so expensive.
Absolutely. It was funny, all the programs. Like, it was free nights and weekends. You had the My Faves for a while. If you had 5 people, you had unlimited calls too. And like now it's like, I don't know, it's just funny how things have changed so quickly.
Extremely. I mean, now we have the internet, right? And you can go anywhere with the internet and find anything on the internet, including inappropriate things. So we just have to be really careful with kids, of course, and do the parent control stuff on the phone so that they don't go crazy. And then unfortunately, kids do get addicted to the phone.
Yeah.
I mean,
not just kids either.
Right, adults too. Yeah. No, I feel like one of my blessings is that as I got older, I can't see small images anymore or letters. So I don't spend a lot of time on my phone reading. But that's kind of an older people situation.
Yeah. But you are spending your time right now running a campaign.
I am.
Running for Senate, District 11.
District 11.
So what territory is that?
Sure. So Senate District 11 has House District 21 and House District 22. And House District 21 pretty much covers like the downtown Salem area, the Capitol, that whole area, and Kaiser.
Okay.
And House District 22 covers Market North all the way to Woodburn.
Okay.
And so that's a combination of space for Senate District 11.
Okay. And what would it mean for you to win for Salem? Like, what is your vision for this community?
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes
Yeah.
there's kind of like this idea of like, this is what I'd like for Salem to look like. But then people get into the role and you realize, I'm not going to be able to fulfill
achieve everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's okay, I'd like to share my story around how I even became interested in running for office. So I was born in Mexico. I came here with my family when I was
What part?
Michoacan.
Okay, that's where my great grandma's from.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's amazing. So our family's from a place called San Jeronimo, Purenchecuaro. It's a little village along the Pátzcuaro Lake. Are you familiar with
I'm
that?
not
Has your
with that area,
grandparents?
no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
We didn't know this until like almost like 3 or 4 years ago.
oh
My
my
brother knew
gosh.
some of like the history and
Yeah,
we kind of find
yeah.
it out. So he says, yeah.
Oh my God. And Michoacan is one of the most beautiful states in all of Mexico. Actually reminds me of Oregon because geographically it's very diverse.
Okay.
But I recommend that you look at your ancestry. If
Yeah.
you're from Michoacan, you have ancestry from Michoacan, that means you have indigenous roots probably.
Okay.
Because I am Purépecha from the state of Michoacan.
Okay.
Our ancestors go all the way back to the Aztecs.
Okay.
Actually, my ancestors fought off the Aztecs when they were trying to conquer different parts of
That's
Mexico.
incredible. Okay.
Yeah, so that's my lineage. And so when we came to this country, my parents were farm workers. Obviously, we came here as immigrants, and I spent my summers picking berries with my parents just to get by. As farm workers, you don't make a lot of money. And our family grew. There's a total of 6 kids in our family. One passed when he was a baby, but 5 of us basically grew up in Oregon. And I had very fortunate experience in school where teachers really loved me, and I was what we called a teacher's pet, I guess, right? Teachers really liked me, and I got nominated to participate in activities at school. And my parents, they were very old school. My dad was very traditional, and so I was really encouraged to go to college, not by my parents because they were like, we want you to go, but we just can't afford to send you. But I was determined. And so I remember talking to my mom, and I said, Mom, I really want to go to college. My teachers say that I am college material, and I feel like I need to find that path. And she said, well, I unfortunately we can't help you financially, but I support you.
Mm.
I ended up changing high schools from Woodburn to Jervis. You're familiar?
My dad went to Woodburn and Jervis
Oh,
also. He
really?
did the opposite. No, he did the same. Yeah, he started at Woodburn and
Okay.
then went to Jervis as well.
Uh-huh.
So they lived in Texas and they moved down
Oh my
when he was
gosh.
about in high school.
Okay.
But he had kind of I guess his story is a little. He's the first one in his family to go to college as well.
Yeah.
Went to Chemeketa,
That's
but his
awesome.
family at the time was definitely not supportive. They're like, "We need your help. We need you to work."
Right, we need you to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that was part of the challenge with my family too, because I was the interpreter. I mean, I was like the second in command. I made sure my brothers and sisters did their homework. I
Yeah.
fed them, all these things that my parents really counted on me for. But I was just really determined. So I went to Jervis, and there was a school counselor who talked to me, and he asked me, he's like, Teresa, I see you walking in the halls, but you don't seem like you're enjoying high school life. And I said, well, I just, I don't know that I belong in high school anymore. And he said, why? I said, because I just want to go to college. Like I want to find a quick pathway. And I think I was a sophomore then. And he says, well, let's figure it out. And he did some research, and he said, you know what? Eugene has a program for migrant students, which you are. And if you want to apply for their scholarship, you can get a GED and start college same year. I was like, what? That exists? And he said, yeah. So I applied, and I got a full ride scholarship to this program called HEP, High School Currency Program. And I went through the program, graduated, and started college like that same year.
That's awesome.
And then just I kept going. I transferred to Western Oregon University and got my associates, and started my career working with families. Like I got my undergrad in social science, so really working with community. That was really important to me, and education. And so I started working for nonprofits, but I was still wanting to get my master's. I decided that I wanted to apply to the MPA program at PSU, Master's in Public Administration, and that was great. Um, and that in 2012, the 2011, I decided to get my citizenship. because I was not a citizen up until
Okay.
then. My family qualified for the Reagan during the Reagan administration through the amnesty program, and so I decided, you know what, I have to do this. This is really important. It'll open doors for me, and I learned about federal jobs. And but you have to be a citizen to get a federal job. So I applied, and thankfully I didn't need a lawyer. I filled everything out myself, and I was eligible, and I became a citizen in 2012. And 2013 community in Woodburn said, Teresa, we would have you ever considered running for office or city council, school board, anything? And that was never a thing
Yeah.
I even considered. As an immigrant, I didn't even know that I was eligible.
Yeah.
But community just really encouraged me. And so, but then I looked at the city leadership. And I noticed that in our city of Woodburn, we had a majority of minority, right? A lot of Latinos, but we had zero representation. And so I took that as a sign that maybe it was time, and got appointed by the mayor. And so I became only the third person of color to become a city council member for Woodburn.
In Woodburn as
In
well.
Woodburn.
Yeah.
And
Because we're pretty similar in Salem.
Mhm.
Like we have a huge Latino population,
Yes.
but not a lot of representation on our
Yes.
city council. And I think part of it is just it's a volunteer position. It's
Exactly.
a hard position. and So
Exactly.
you're busy with life. It's hard to how to make time for this as well. Like running the
Mhm.
campaign, but then getting the job and actually doing it well is also it can be challenging.
Correct.
Do you think
Correct.
that's what's holding people back from putting their name in the hat? Or
There's several things actually. Yes, not being paid for it. Sometimes it is volunteer. In some cities, you get a stipend or you get paid very minimal, but mostly, yeah, it's a volunteer gig. You have to work an additional hours next to your own job, right?
Mhm.
And really represent your community. So yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's also enjoyable if that's something that for you helps community, right? Bringing community
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that part. And then in 2015, people came to me. Betty Comp was our state representative at that time, and people started coming to me because she was going to be retiring, and they said, Teresa, we'd love for you to consider state office. And I was like, what does a state legislator do? I didn't
Yeah.
even know what a state legislator did
Yeah.
at that time. And I started doing research. And I also looked at the
What do they do?
Right.
Yeah. Let us
Well,
know.
one of the important things they do is to help pass laws, right? Laws that help our community in some capacity, and some laws, or change some laws that really are so antiquated that we need to update them to represent our current community. But also, state legislators help push for funding to go into like fixing our roads. There's just a lot of things that legislators can do.
Okay.
So I did that research, and I also looked at our legislative body. We also didn't have representation. I think there were two Latinos in office at that time, and then I asked, well, what is it that I need to do if I choose to become a state legislator? And they said, well, you have to run for office. For city council, I was appointed. I went through their process, but here I had to officially run a campaign,
Yeah.
and I was told I had to raise $500,000.
So, right.
That I never thought I'd be connected to $500,000 ever.
Yeah.
So I went through some trainings to learn about how to run campaigns. And it's almost like running a small business. And you have to start calling people to help you fund your campaign,
Yeah.
which is something that I had never done before.
Yeah.
And it's kind of scary at the beginning because
People are saying no, they're hanging up on
yeah,
you,
they're like, who are
right?
you?
Yeah.
But I learned that if you connect what you can do for community as opposed to you, the person,
Yeah.
then people are open
How did you
to.
do that? Like, because a lot of it's cold calling, a lot of
Yeah,
it, right?
correct.
So what did you learn about getting somebody's attention long enough where you
Yeah.
can, like actually talk to them for a moment?
Yeah. So, well, I think the practice is that you start with friends and family first
Okay.
to
Yeah.
get warmed up, right?
Yeah.
And to have some funding in your bank, your account. So when you start cold calling, it's not as hard.
Yeah.
But basically, you call somebody and you say, "Hi, I am Teresa Alonso León. I'm looking for this person. I want to chat with them about my campaign. I'm running for state office." And then then I will ask, are there specific issues that are important to you that I should know about, that I should consider as I am, running for office, or if I have the opportunity to win, that I can work on. And that caught people's attention, because really at the end of the day, our people want to be seen and heard,
Yeah.
and want their issues represented in the work that you do.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. I decided to run, and I ran one of the toughest races at the time in 2016. My opponent had 20 plus more political years than I did.
Oh, wow.
And one of the things that we did different in my campaign was that we ran a multilingual campaign. For me, it was important that our Spanish speaking community saw themselves in my campaign, and our Russian community too, because we have a Russian community. And I did the same thing in person as I did on the phone. Ask people, what are issues that are important to you? And one memorable story that I have, where I felt really connected to our community, was when I knocked on somebody's door. I was looking for a young person, and the dad answered. And I said, "Hi, my name is Teresa Alonso León," because you have to door knock, let everybody
Yeah.
know you're running.
Yep.
And the dad spoke broken English, and so he said, "But do you speak Spanish?" I said, "Absolutely." I said, "Claro que sí." And he started sharing the things that were important to him. And the thing that he said before I left his house, and after I spoke to his daughter, was, "This is the first time in my life where a candidate came to my house, and I got to speak my native language so I could express myself comfortably." To me, that was so powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful. I walked away and I got misty-eyed because I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, this is it is true." We've never had a candidate who spoke a second language, understood the community, the farm worker community, in a way that I did, because I grew up and that was my experience too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really powerful, that moment for me.
I love it. And so now looking at the Senate race,
Hmm.
talk to me about some of the motivation behind it and what you think it would mean for the community if you were
Yeah.
to win.
Yeah. Well, um, so similar to when I ran the first time, community came to me again. And this time around, though, we're living with a backdrop with an administration that is really stressing our immigrant community. We've had immigration raids. Our kids don't want to go to school. They're fearful. We have families who don't want to go to work because they're fearful that they'll be separated. And it's happening all over the country. So it's not like it's just happening in Oregon. Um, and so I think that there's a lot of folks who remember the policies that I passed when I was a state legislator. I passed a universal representation bill, which basically allowed for funding to go towards our immigrant families who were being separated or detained by ICE, and they needed support with getting an immigration lawyer, or getting resources in case the father or the mother who got detained was a breadwinner, and then they needed resources like help with rent, help with just those kinds of services. And I helped strengthen the sanctuary law to have accountability measures, because the sanctuary law really says that police cannot help ICE and detaining anybody. And so now we have a number that people can call if they see the police working with ICE, because they're not supposed to.
And it seems like the police still are kind of being attacked, even though they can't work with ICE, by people that are against ICE. I guess I don't know. I'm kind of how do you feel about
So,
that?
well,
Maybe you can shed
I
some
think there's a little
perspective.
bit of confusion.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, the police can't help ICE; they're not supposed to. But I think what's also happening is police don't engage when ICE is attacking, our immigrant populations. And I think there's, and so our police are saying, well, we can't engage, right? Um, but if I want to say if, and this happened in Woodburn, if a family, let's say ICE goes to your house and the person they're looking for doesn't live there, is no, that they could call police. They should be able to call police and say, ICE is in my house asking for this person. They don't live here. I need your help. That's a way that police can help, and that's a way that our families can feel safe. But I think there is a little bit of confusion around what the police are or aren't doing to help mitigate the situations where immigration or ICE is, identifying people to take,
I think
whether
it's just
there's.
one of the challenges of having so many layers of government, which there are benefits. So I mean, we
Mhm,
should. But when federal law says one thing and state law says another thing, and they conflict, if you are
mhm,
somebody whose job is to uphold the law, I feel
mhm.
like that's a challenging spot to be in.
It is, but I hope, though, that I mean, we know Oregon has had this law the longest out of any state in this country, so it's pretty clear,
Mhm.
But I think that um, some of the work has to happen within the individual police departments to make sure that they're not crossing the line, that they are helping community members as opposed to helping ICE. Or, when do you step in to help a family if they're being treated disrespectfully, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I've had a hard time discussing this topic on Instagram
Mm-hmm.
because you post anything about it and it
Mm-hmm.
just becomes yelling in the comments.
Yeah.
And so for me, sometimes I'm like, there's so many other places for people to argue about this.
Yeah.
Maybe my page isn't going to be that place, but I also like it's something happening in the community, so I want to figure out how to
Mm-hmm.
talk about it. But
Yeah.
it's been challenging for sure.
Yeah. It is. And it's a complicated issue too, I wish we didn't have ICE coming to our state and impacting our communities, because the fact of the matter is, they're not necessarily screening people correctly, because some of our citizens are being picked up for no reason, and that doesn't make sense. And unfortunately, we are living in a time where, if you look like me, regardless of whether I'm a citizen or not, I could be picked up. And some of us are having to carry our passports to prove we're citizens, in case that does happen. And that doesn't make sense, but that's the environment we're living in right now until we have a new president and things change.
Okay. The other another hot topic is
Mhm.
homelessness
Yeah.
in our community. People who are unhoused, struggling to find shelter.
Yeah.
Currently, they kind of get pushed around one area or another. We recently had the sweeps on the ODOT facility where people had tents set up, had been living there for a while,
Yeah.
and I personally I feel like we need a place where it's like, hey, here's a place where we can be, and some sort of support where people aren't being taken advantage of while they're in this
Mhm.
location wherever it is.
Mhm.
But I'm curious to hear from you. Like,
Yeah.
what should it look like, and how should
Yeah.
it be different than what it is now?
Well, you know, being houseless, um, attribute to a lot of situations. We always talk about we're only a paycheck away from being homeless ourselves,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
And so, and a lot of factors I think contribute to that: mental health, lack of support services, and what hurts my heart most is when you see families, kids and moms, or kids and dads, even pets, and their pet parents. It makes me sad, but I really think that we need to invest in mental health support. and addiction support. Because when you're healthy, you can find a job, right? And certainly we need to increase more affordable housing. One thing that I've always talked about at the state level when I was a state legislator is what is affordability? Because what's affordable to me may not be affordable to you. And can we talk about, housing that can be, different steps where if somebody's, coming off the streets and they're used to being in the streets and they're not used to working, well, we need to provide training, in a career that interests them. So education is also important in addition to having housing, because oftentimes if you apply for a job, you need to put down that you have an address. So it's a combination of things that we need to be able to do, but it costs money. We need to invest in it, right? And it's not only a state issue. It's a city, a county, and a state issue. So I think that all of us should be working together to help problem solve that.
Do you have an idea of what would be different compared to now? When you're talking about investing, a lot of these programs exist,
Yeah.
and they're very expensive. It seems like they're getting results. The challenge. So I did a documentary actually on the unhoused last year, and I learned a ton going through the process.
Yeah.
And part of what I learned is that the people you see are a small population of the people that are actually in house. There are people living in cars. There are people that are on just kind of bouncing from house to house, trying to figure things out.
Right.
But
Yeah,
what
there's different levels.
but what I learned is that the longer somebody is without housing, the harder it is to kind of get them back into stability, because you have all these skills you have to relearn. Or when you are on the streets, you're in survival mode. It's
Right.
every single day I got to figure out how I'm going to eat. Or
Right.
how am I going to be safe? You know what I mean? All these things you're not thinking about. Okay, I got to pay my rent this month.
Yeah.
And, make sure the water bill is taken care of. And
Yeah.
all these little skills, showing up to work.
Right.
That's right. You know what I mean?
Right.
So getting somebody back on their feet is just seems like for an individual an overwhelming process.
Yeah.
Sometimes. But then you have the collection of individuals. And I think where I struggle is definitely being very empathetic on how hard that reality is, and
Yeah.
understanding that could be me
Yeah.
someday, but also as a community, what is it supposed to look like to help this many people get back on their feet where they're not, if that's the end goal.
Right. And I think that's a brilliant comment, because the people who know or who need the resources are the people who know. We have to be asking them, how can we help you? And let them guide us. I think that's an important thing, as opposed to us coming in and telling them what to do. Nobody wants to be told what to do.
Yeah.
People want to be part of the solution. So I think that's one way to do it. But again, it's about all of us working together with the population and asking, those key questions. What would it take for us to help you get to a place where you feel good about finding a job and being ready to sustain a job? Because that's the other thing. You could get a job, but you have to sustain that job.
Absolutely.
Raise enough money to be self independent and contribute to society in a way that's healthy. So there's no one single way, but definitely engaging with the population who needs the support. I think that's important too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how about for the Oregon currently has a reputation of not being the most business friendly place. We have businesses that are moving out. Curious your perspective. Do you think that's accurate? Do you feel, or again, what would it look like for the business community if you were to?
Sure. Well, I'm a small business owner, and so I get taxed up the wazoo, just like everybody else who has a business. Um, but I see that as an investment to our state. And I feel like we have businesses coming in and leaving. It's kind of a rotation. Cities or states like California, they tax their business people even more than we do.
Yeah.
And they're there, right? So I think one of the things about having a business in a state, I feel, it's important that if you're going to be in our state, it's important to contribute and be part of the family, and help elevate, systems like our education. I don't know if you are familiar with this, but we are 3 decades behind in funding post-secondary education, which means that
What is post-secondary education?
sure. So post-secondary education is everything between the trades, um, uh, CTE programs, apprenticeship programs, all the way to 4-year degrees. So
Okay.
that whole system. Um, and so what happens then is that when our students want to go to college, it's really expensive, and we're not making it accessible. And institutions will then, instead of getting funding from the state to help provide scholarships and support systems for students, they have to increase tuition on the backs of students. And I think that's a hard concept for a lot of people to think about, because when you think about students who go to college, it should be the right for anybody who wants to go. It absolutely is, but it's incredibly expensive, and you end up leaving with a huge loan after you're done with school. You shouldn't have to have that huge debt that impedes you from getting a new car or a home afterwards.
Yeah.
And so in order for us to have a strong economy, we have to have a strong education system that prepares our kids and our students and even adults who come back from an industry that's closed to get the training so they can get back in and strengthen our economy. But at what cost?
Yeah.
It's very expensive.
Extremely expensive. Yeah,
Mhm.
student loans are wild.
Yes, and it shouldn't be,
Yeah.
and that's part of the work that I'm doing now. I'm working I'm a consultant, and so I work with a nonprofit called Capaces Leadership Institute. In 2021, I passed a law, House Bill 2590, which allowed me and 7 other legislators to travel the state and talk to students, talk to our underrepresented students about, what's college like for you right now? What's working? What doesn't work? How can we improve it? And so we learned a lot from talking to students, because that had never happened before.
Yeah.
Like, nobody ever talks to students.
Yeah.
And so we came up with about 30 policies that we want to present at the legislature in the future. But some of the other concepts that came out of it was, unlike K-12, post-secondary higher ed did not have a community advocacy group advocating on behalf of our students who are in post-secondary education. So I created
Advocate
that
to who?
to the legislature,
Okay.
basically holding the legislature and our agencies accountable.
Mhm.
Or having other folks advocating with universities and community colleges to get the funding they need to continue to educate our students.
Yeah.
And then the other piece that came out of that information.
Do you think that like these programs should be focused more on like what the needs are in a community? If I think of like, all right, here's the positions that I know we're gonna need.
Mhm.
We should be investing in these. Or are you more of an approach of like let the students decide what they want to do and let's just fund all of it?
That's a really good question. So my vision for Oregon is that 100% of our kids who go through our public school system know that they have the opportunity to go into the trades, apprenticeship programs, CTE, and 4-year degrees, and that we are going to celebrate them exactly the same way. We're going to be proud of them, right? Because we know that not all kids want to go to college.
Yeah.
Or we know that not all kids are ready to go to college. Maybe they want to become a plumber, right? And they make good money.
Yeah.
And they decide, hey, I now want to go to college and get my business degree so I can have a business. I am super supportive of that. That is what I want for our kids in Oregon, and for our adults who come back from industry that's closed, that they come back and get trained or earn a degree in the areas they want. And also working in collaboration with the state to identify what industries need more people, right?
Mhm.
So once part of the work I'm doing now is that we did an analysis on different parts of the state and what industries exist there. So when we're talking to young people about their opportunities, we're saying, in your backyard, these are the industries that exist here. And if you don't want to go to a 4-year institution, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You can go to community college, get the training, and you can start a job and be making X amount of money right
Yeah.
away. And what's interesting, what we found is that our kids and families didn't even know that.
Yeah. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's like so valuable, giving
Mm-hmm.
them the like I feel like for me, what I am most passionate about is like what's like the quickest way from A to B.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't always feel like a 4-year degree is
Mm-hmm.
that. Like
Yeah,
you don't need a 4-year degree to start a business.
correct.
And I think sometimes throughout life we're kind of trained to put these
Mm-hmm.
imaginary guardrails in front of
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. Like, before I do that, I gotta do this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily.
Correct.
Just talk to somebody that's done it is probably the faster path, and they'll
Correct.
be able to help you
Yep,
out.
I agree with you. But I do feel it's important to connect with industry,
Yeah,
to be working
absolutely.
together.
Yeah. I
And
think CTech does a really good job of that. Like they're always like working with industry
Mhm.
partners and helping understand, okay, what certifications do kids need?
Correct.
How can we try to figure out how to make sure our kids can leave graduating
Correct.
high school with those certifications so they're
Correct.
ready to go,
That's right.
which saves the kids a ton of money after
Mhm.
college because you have it. You don't have to pay for it afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those sort of programs are so valuable, especially as the trades become more and more needed and
Mhm.
really like the best way for kids to make good money right
That's
out of high
right.
school and provide for themselves and kind of build a life they can be proud of.
That's right. And the trades have always been there. It's just that we've, I think, pushed either for the trades for certain populations or higher ed for other populations.
Yeah,
And it really shouldn't be that way. It should be, let's work with the kids and the families and identify what makes sense for each family
yeah,
and encourage and support that. And just imagine if we did that and that we normalized it, and that our little preschool kids were like, someday I might be a plumber or I might be, a lawyer,
yeah.
that they know that they have these options, right? The spectrum of opportunities is what I call it. And that then we fix that, what I consider the broken bridge, the transition between high school GED into post-secondary,
Mhm.
and earning your degree or certification and then getting a job. I think our kids should not just get a certification and a degree and then we say good luck. We should be working hard with industry, having those jobs ready, doing internships, paid internships,
Yeah.
and that our kids have that already, that background to get into those jobs. And that we're not saying good luck, we're saying we're going to work with you to identify the job for you so you're not struggling after you earn your degree or your certification.
Like, is that a college program or is that like just a community program?
That doesn't exist right now.
I'm curious your vision.
Yeah.
Who owns that?
That I think the state should own that. I think that ODE and the HEC, Higher Education Coordinating Commission, they should be doing this work, and they are doing this work right now. But it's not consistent. It doesn't meet every single family. Um, uh, our families who live in frontier and rural communities, they're not getting this information. A lot of our families in the I-5 corridor are, Portland, Salem, they are, but not in the rural communities. And I think that we need to do better, absolutely. And this is the area that I'm passionate about, and currently working to make those connections with the ODE and with the HEC. Because I used to work for the HEC. I was a state GED administrator back in the day.
I think the hard part about new programs in the government is the question is, okay, how do we pay for it though?
Mm-hmm.
And so often things don't get invested in until they're broken. And at
Mm-hmm.
that point, it's way more expensive to fix the problem than it would have been with
Mm-hmm.
just like consistent maintenance throughout.
Yeah. Well, one thing is that while we've been doing this work, and as we've been connecting with ODE and the HEC to collaborate, is that we discovered that there is a law actually that is requiring this work to happen. So because this law is asking for this to happen, so the timing's been perfect. We didn't even know. So the timing's perfect, and so now we can work together and make a funding request for the 2027 session. because there's a law that's requiring it.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then you're running against Tracy Kramer.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I have a primary.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I have a primary with Virginia Stapleton. She's the former city council member here in Woodburn.
Virginia. She's been on the podcast as well.
Yeah, yeah, and so we're running against each other. So in May, the people will be able to vote and identify who of us two they want to run in the general.
Okay.
Then that's where if I win, hopefully I'll win, and I'll run against Tracy Kramer.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Howard, so Virginia will also be invited on the podcast. We'll make sure this podcast is a platform fair for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
How are you two different?
Well, I have almost 10 years experience as a public servant. I have 3.5 years at the Woodburn City Council, and then I served 3 consecutive terms as a state legislator. And as a state legislator, I passed some of the most historical policies in the state. We passed the driver's license law that allows everybody who is eligible, who passes a test and so forth, to own a driver's license without fear of having to prove that you're a citizen or not. I mentioned about the earlier about the law related to Oregon sanctuary and universal representation. I also helped champion and pass the country's strongest family paid and medical leave, which is basically if any of your family members or anybody who you consider a family gets sick and you have to take time off to work, you're guaranteed your job back and you continue to get paid up to a certain percent. Which is one of the strongest laws in the country. Yeah, I passed tons of laws, including education laws. So I believe that, and under my leadership, when I was the chair of the education and higher education committees, we passed some of the most equity-focused laws in Oregon's history. Mm-hmm.
But what's one that you're most proud of?
In general,
Yeah.
In general, I want
give us the hits. Give us the highlights.
Yeah, so I'm very proud of the family paid and medical leave. That to me is one of the most important laws we could have to protect our families. The other one is that I help champion or help pass the health care for all kids, which basically is a law that every single child, regardless of immigration status, you have access to health care. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those two I think are some of the most important ones, historical ones, but also the ones that protect our immigrant population.
Okay. So what does the access to healthcare look like? Okay.
So with the current administration at the federal level,
the law that you passed.
Oh,
yeah.
So the healthcare one for all. So basically, what that is that every child in Oregon has access to healthcare. So they can go to any clinic and any hospital, and they'll be treated, regardless of whether they have an immigration status, regardless of their immigration status.
Okay.
And we're working since then. I've served on the healthcare committee. And I also pushed to make sure that we had health equity. What does that mean? It means that when we're looking at the determinants of health, are we looking at all of our populations or just certain populations? And how are we serving them? And so one of the things that I would challenge our state is I want to see the demographic breakdowns. How are we supporting all of our populations? Those questions weren't being asked before. And it's important to ask because we want to make sure that our non-English speaking families who need to access resources regarding health, that there's information in their language, right? So they understand, and that there's interpretation services so that they can learn about the situation of their health and make decisions for themselves. So all of these support services are really important. And the state actually adopted that concept that they were going to improve that system and make sure that health equity was a priority for them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Another question that we had recently is we had somebody from Banner Homes on, last week,
Mm-hmm.
and we kind of talked about affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
And something they brought up was like how expensive it is to build a house.
Yeah.
Like even before you start, a number he brought up is that even before you start digging in the ground, you're like $200,000 into a project to build a home.
Mm-hmm.
And it's part of the reason that we have so many apartments going up is just the math is easier for someone to invest when there's multiple doors. It's more aligned with the state's vision of like building X number of doors every single year. It's easier to hit that goal when you have apartments that are being built. So I know we've made some adjustments to our what we can and can't do on our property, like having ADUs is available now to kind of help with some of that. Curious your thoughts on making it easier or keeping things the same as far as like actually building neighborhoods and houses.
Yeah.
Part of
Well,
that is an urban growth boundary.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, when you're, at limit, you get to a place where you either need to build up or build out, right? And that's where the UGB concept comes around. But the cost of building buildings here, that's certainly an important issue to consider because we want affordability to be for everybody. But if it costs $200,000 to even start the concept, that and I would say that the state has a responsibility to figure out how to make it affordable for housing to be built. Certainly, right, through different ways to make that happen. Again, I think it's important that everybody should have a home, right? Not everybody can purchase a home, but everybody should have a home and can afford it, right? Before, when I first purchased my home, one of the things that I had to consider was, can I afford to make the monthly payments and groceries and pay my bills, right? And it used to be that you should spend 1/3 of your total check. But now the cost of purchasing a home, it's anywhere between 300 and $500,000. This is in Woodburn. And so I think about our farm workers, who are citizens and who want to buy their home. How is that possible that they can't even, consider it? Because, or if they do, oftentimes they double up families. Hey, let's buy a house together. But that's kind of, a kind of a weird situation because everybody wants their own home.
Yeah.
But it is very expensive, and I think that you make a really good point, and that we need to make it more affordable for builders to build.
Yeah.
But also, oftentimes those are union jobs, and so we also want to protect our labor, right?
Yeah.
And make sure that they're not being mistreated or taken advantage of, because I think that's also really important. I used to be part of a union, and so for me, that's really important, protecting labor and making sure that industry is not taking advantage of people, because that makes me sad, because it does happen. But yeah, I mean that's something that I would definitely work on, and that's a continuous issue, right? Like that's something that our legislators are currently working on, and certainly if I become a legislator again, that's something that's going to be really important for me to work on.
So we're hosting a mayoral debate next Tuesday, and so we had people ask questions.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that came up was, can you have the candidates guarantee that they would not adjust their urban growth boundaries? And to me, I'm like, I don't know if I necessarily want somebody to commit to not adjusting it, because we just need more places for people to live. Like, we're outgrowing the space that we have as far as like having options.
Yeah.
I guess I'd be curious to just your perspective
Yeah.
on urban growth boundaries specifically.
Sure. Well, back when I was on the Woodburn City Council, we literally had maxed out our land, and Woodburn's growing. Like that's a
Yes.
happening place, as they used to say back in the day, and we needed space. And when I came on board on the city council, they had already been working towards passing the UGB, and it took a long time. I think like 15 years, because our UGB laws are so strict in Oregon, and
15 years. Wow.
yeah, it's a long time. And and there's a lot of environmentalists who are very protective of farmland, which I support. I think it's important to keep farmland, right? And so this is where cities have to decide, should we, start building upward? If we have beautiful farmland, we don't want to disrupt that, right? We want to make sure we keep it. But unfortunately, well, not I wouldn't say unfortunately. I want to recognize that we do have some amazing environmentalists out there who are working really hard to protect the land. And so we had to go through this whole process with the state and with Thousand Friends. And I love the work of Thousand Friends. But I think reluctantly, through the state process, we were able to gain 300 acres to build, and I think one of the agreements was that we wouldn't grow farther out for 20 years.
Okay.
And it hasn't been 20 years yet, but we are already outgrowing just because the community is growing so fast.
Absolutely.
And so I think that there's definitely opportunity, and this is where we have to work together. Is the land that we're trying to grow out towards, is it farmland? Does it not work? And is it farmland that isn't, you can't save it? So you have to be really mindful of which direction you want to grow, and whether developing upward is an option for the city.
100%. Anything we haven't chatted about today that you'd like to make sure we cover? Appreciate you taking the time to be here.
No, thank you for the opportunity. I just want to say thank you first for the opportunity to come and speak with you and be interviewed by you, because I follow you and my friends all follow you.
Awesome.
And so I just want to say what's really important for any candidate that's running is that you come out and vote. I know oftentimes on a non-presidential election, people are like, I'm gonna, it's not a presidential election, so I may not vote. I want to say that every vote counts for those of us who are running for office, and that we could lose or win by one single vote. And so we ask folks to go out and vote if you have your ballot. And also register. It's important to register. So some people don't even realize that they're not registered to vote. So go to the Secretary of State's office and check if you're registered or not. And we also have the motor voter law that basically registers the younger students automatically, and our young people don't even know that they're registered. So it's important that our young people go to the Secretary of State's office to check again if you're registered, and also to identify what party you want to belong to. So these are important things for you to be eligible to vote. So yeah, and thank you for the opportunity.
I appreciate it. No, yeah, absolutely. Register to vote. I think the interesting thing about it is, in Oregon, we get 2 electoral votes. Like, our votes for presidents doesn't really matter at all. Maybe that's not entirely accurate, but really, like, I don't think 2 electoral votes have ever decided a presidential election. What really does matter, though, and what's really going to impact your life at a much larger degree, are the local elections.
Absolutely.
City council, mayor, Senate,
Board members, yep.
all of that matters. But then also learning about how you can participate and get involved and run, for something yourself, because we need people stepping up. For a lot of seats, there's lots of different committees as well, where you have a chance to have your voice heard in a meaningful way, probably more meaningful than arguing in comments on, whatever platform you go to. So it's awesome having people like you that are stepping up and making things happen. And
Thank you.
it's a big reason I enjoy using this platform to highlight a lot of our elected officials, because it is a really big job. A lot of them are unpaid volunteer. And at minimum, you're probably making less than you would be spending your time doing something else. So I appreciate the fact that people that show up, and even if I'm not 100% in agreement with a candidate, and I'm not 100% in agreement with any candidate, to be fair, I just want to make sure there's a platform here where people can be heard.
Absolutely. And truth of the matter is, legislators don't make a lot of money. I think there's a assumption that, when I go out and talk to young people, they say, you make $100,000. I wish. But no, in reality, we're making, because we're what we considered a citizenry legislature, which means, everyday people can run for office. And so it's considered part-time, but it really is not part-time. When I was a state legislator, people from all over the state will reach out to my office because I speak Spanish, and so we would end up doing a lot of extra work to serve the people. And yeah, we don't make a lot of money. Really, the work that we do is really out of the calling to serve community, and so I consider it, a humble servant for the people, and so that's why I'm running, because they've asked me to run.
Thank you so much for being here. What's happening in Salem? Appreciate you being here as well. We will see you back at Metronome next Wednesday. Appreciate you. Peace. Got it? We're still rolling. Act natural.